Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Scuttlebutt Podcast, the most informal VR podcast on the internet. And we are back, baby. It has been a while since we did an actual, podcast episode. How you guys feeling?
Chilling. Not sick yet, so that's good.
That is good. Yeah, that's always going to be a problem for you, I think. I don't know. Honestly, I think that's a perfect segue into what we're talking about. The new Apple Vision Pro headset, which is going to be coming out February 2nd, which is today if I manage to upload this on time, so hopefully. But it is, they're calling it their spatial computing headset. They refuse to say, what are we doing, the Macarena over here? But yeah, so the Apple Vision Pro headset is out now. People have purchased it for an absolutely insane amount of money. But their whole thing is spatial computing. So I think they're counting on people to not get sick in the way that Hermes does by trying to plant them in real life as much as possible and just having windows floating around and stuff. So the pre-orders actually opened January 19th and they basically sold out immediately. I think they're sold out to March or April right now. Which is kind of insane when you consider that the base model for the headset, 256 gigabytes, costs $3,500.
Yeah,
and
that's
naturally,
pretty wild.
the three of us are all signed up for a pre-order.
No,
as soon as the Scuttlebutt funds come through,
this would be a
I'll let
good
you know.
time to remind everyone to subscribe to our Patreon. It's right here. There will be a link. Help us out. Help us buy the Apple Vision Pro so we can review it. Not in here, because I don't even think it's going to have VRchat. I assume that this is far too degenerate for Apple. Right now, the closest equivalent that's supposed to be coming is a game called Rec Room, which is kind of like a glorified Roblox. No offense to those guys. They're doing great, but it's just not my cup of tea, and it's for a different audience, I would say, compared to the people in VRchat. And what's your opinion on that? That the Apple Vision Pro won't let you be a frog? Right now they have these crazy, they're called personas. And so it uses a bunch of iPhone selfies to make this really creepy fucking uncanny valley version of yourself that you can use in Zoom calls and shit. Nobody likes it. I have not heard a single good thing about that feature. It doesn't come with controllers.
I already don't want it.
It uses just eye tracking and pinch gestures to select everything, which they sold as being the future of interaction, but I've read a lot, typing, I guess, is terrible on it, because it's the opposite of touch typing. You have to stare at every letter. Apple, I would say, is not, into VR at all. They've said that they aren't, in as many words. They're into spatial computing. We've invented this new thing that's a computer on your face. They don't let the developers mention VR or AR or anything at all in any of their descriptions. It has to be spatial computing. They have a ton of apps, but most of them are just iPad apps.
Sounds like it's just geared to be a completely different thing than a VR headset.
That's how they're selling it. But functionally, it is a VR headset. It doesn't do...
the reality that's virtual is more of a professional workspace. And that sounds dumb.
That's the thing. I think they haven't had the hurdles, or they haven't overcome a lot of the learning curve yet. That's what I think's going on there. And if they're using...
Yeah, I know. VR's only been out for a solid decade now, so... But Apple just invented it. They just invented it. So they're just figuring it out. If you look at the specs and compare everything, I think Apple would sell the Quest 3 for $2,000.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I don't have any faith that they're ever going to make their products reasonably priced when their phones are still running over $1,000.
Well, and they've only been going up in price. But I think what you're talking about as far as users is a huge question, because so far, according to the supply chain in 2024, Apple's looking at making 500,000 Apple Vision Pro units. Meta sold 320,000 units in the holiday season alone between the Quest 2 and the Quest 3. With their relatively small user base, especially to start with, developers aren't going to be able to afford to make cool stuff for these smaller things. And it's a thing that we've been seeing with the PS2 VR we talked about. Several studios have shut down because they're making games and they're pouring so much money into it. And then they look at, if every single person who owns one of these bought my game, which they won't, we still can't make money back. We're still losing money. So we just have to shut down and say, sorry, we don't make games anymore. The VR doesn't have enough support. On the PC VR side, you're seeing a similar thing where games are just, they're dumbing themselves down. Games that came out this year or last year look visually worse than games that came out 5 years ago. And it's because now they're making them for the Quest headsets. And so they make something that fits on Quest and then port it to as many other things as possible because, you know, Quest is what's selling. That's what everyone has. But so while we're talking about developers, I do think it's important to mention that some of them are already kind of taking a stand, or at least talking about it. Netflix, YouTube, and Spotify will not have Vision OS apps at all. And furthermore, they've disallowed their iPad apps from working on the Vision Pro. And that's like a conscious, that's not just something that you have to opt out of that to make it so you can't be on the headset at all. So there are some obviously major developers, YouTube, I assume, because Google's working on their own headset at some point.
Probably, yeah. And like you said, not worth the work and the effort.
Sure. It looks great, I guess. So we've been just railing on a bunch of negatives, but the resolution is like insane, I guess. They were talking about how each pixel is the size of a red blood cell and shit. So it looks really good, which it needs to for the pass-through. But just like the pass-through with other VR headsets, like with the Quest 3 that has color, it can get grainy and really low lighting. There's definitely motion blur. Like, things aren't as rosy as they want you to think it is, which, because you're getting images into a camera and then processing them and then feeding them into a person's eyeball fast enough that it doesn't just make them ridiculously sick right out of the gate.
Yeah. I'm curious about if they're catering it or gearing it toward more of like a AR versus VR, experience,
Nope.
which it sounds like they kind of are
Spatial
leaning on
computing.
the AR side versus VR. I know we can't say it, but guess what? On the Scuttlebutt, I can say fucking AR because that's what it is. It's an augmentation of reality. It's not a virtual world reality that you're stepping into. If I'm correct in understanding which direction they're leaning, which sounds like AR, maybe that can be the thing that kind of separates them, puts them apart. If they're able to figure out that pass through, or maybe some certain features that maybe like dissolve, the camera aspect away, so it's just your actual naked eye. I haven't even seen the headset. Isn't like a visor or something? But
Yeah, no, it looks just like any other VR headset. Like, it's just a thing that you pop over your head. You can't see except for through the cameras. It has a narrower field of view than the Quest. So, like, one reporter from The Verge described it as it feels like you're looking at everything through binoculars. And the most disappointing thing, in my opinion, is that people have reported, like, chromatic aberrations around the outer parts of the screen. So, like, in the corner of your eyes, you can see greens and reds and blues that just shouldn't fucking be there.
Honestly, if anything, it sounds like a major disappointment, and another reason why even if it was 2,000 or 2,500, I wouldn't be jumping at the opportunity to grab one, honestly.
So here's a question. What would it take to get you guys to buy one? At $3,500, what would it take to sell you?
That's not an amount of money I'm really willing to spend on something that's not, like, on anything almost, really.
Yeah.
I'd have a really hard time dropping $3,500 on one singular thing. Most of the stuff you're saying we could already do on
the Quest, exactly, and it's
for
$600.
Like, what this?
Yeah.
I mean,
I bought this for $5.
I bought this for $250.
Yep, the Quest 2s are $250, and then the Quest 3, which is a huge step up, is still only $500. And so, like, that's kind of what you could buy 7 Quest 3s for the price of an Apple Vision Pro. And the question is it better? Yes, that people have agreed that it seems to be better. Is it 7 times better? I've not seen any person that has said that they think this is a $3,000 better experience. So isn't it really weird that, like, given that thing that, like, Apple is not really for business people, it's much more for creatives, but they haven't shown a single creative thing that you can do with the Apple Vision Pro. It's all been, you can use apps, you can watch movies, you can do all the things that you do on your computer or your phone, but just different from doing it that way. At this point, we don't even need to get into the price for the accessories because I can already tell you guys aren't going to like them. They're hundreds of dollars each. Let's just put it that way. You can buy a carrying case for $199. In conclusion, to wrap this up, give some final thoughts on my end. It is Apple, and the sales numbers alone show that tons of people are willing to throw down $3,500, even if we aren't. They've sold out all of their pre-orders to, like I said, like March or April. It shows that people aren't afraid to try a VR headset if it's marketed correctly, if it's given the right spin, if the right person kind of like presents it. Apple wasn't the first person to invent a smartphone. They weren't the first person to make Bluetooth headphones, but they were the first people to make them sexy. They were the first people to make them things that were lifestyle objects that people wanted to own and to have. And so I think that's...
I think Apple could put their logo on an actual Apple and sell it for $500.
Well, that's what I was going to say as we wrap this up, as the final maybe like nail in the coffin for Apple, is they weren't the first to do this. I completely agree that they weren't the first to pretty much any market outside of like the creativity, sexy side of the house. What they do well. I will give them that. This video probably won't go viral because we're well ahead of the curve, behind the curve, and Apple won't fucking let it.
Oh, we're going viral. What are your thoughts, everyone, on the Apple Vision Pro? Are you buying one? Do you think it's stupid? Tell us down in the comments, and like, subscribe, share the video, or the YouTube algorithm will yell at us. Alrighty.
All right, Darren, hit us.
We ready to just kick this bad boy off?
Yeah, I got chicken tendies waiting on me.
Fan-fucking-tastic. Hello, everyone, and welcome... You done?